When I was a kid, this storyteller visited our school. And I remember all the children sat on the floor in the library while she told these stories of folklore and legend that were just terrifying. We were far too young for the stories that she was telling us. And then she did a spoken word adaptation of W. Jacobs' The Monkey's Paw, and I was hooked. I love a good horror novel, but horror short stories for me is where the magic really happens, because a short story wastes no time in delivering some chills. My guest tonight is Clay McLeod Chapman. He is a writer of novels such as Wake Up and Open Your Eyes and Ghost Eaters. And he also has a new book of horror short stories called Acquired Tastes that just recently came out. So we're going to waste no time as we jump into a discussion of horror short stories. So right now we both seem to be live and in living color.
Perfect.
So you have written a ton of novels, you've written comics, but I have to believe, and I could be wrong, but I have to believe that you got your start like most of us doing short stories. Am I off base, or is that the truth?
Oh no, you are totally on base. It's funny, my first book was in fact a collection of short stories. And so I kind of dove right into the the shallow end of the pool with the little bite-sized bits. Like I thought I was gonna just write short stories till the day I die. I would have steered clear of novels if I could. But yeah, I love short stories.
They're so much more fun.
Absolutely. Little bon mots, little amuse-bouches for, you've got a subway ride, you got 15 minutes to kill, just pop a short story in that mouth.
Do you remember the first short story you wrote? and I mean, in all of history, do you remember the first short story you wrote?
Oh man. I'm gonna date myself, but there was this little film that came out called Critters. I don't know if you remember it. And I remember I think I was too young to even watch the movie when it came out, but
me too.
Yeah. But I remember they had TV ads back then, and just I you know what, I actually think it wasn't even the first Critters. I think it might have been Critters 2, where there's like an Easter motif to it.
That's Critters 2.
Yeah. And like the eggs, like there was like eggs get like there's like an Easter egg kind of like moment,
and the critters merge together into one giant critter ball,
one big old hairball
that erupts out of, if I'm remembering correctly, the Hungry Heifer restaurant. I think that's the name of the restaurant.
Wow, did you really just pull that? You are, I'm kind of bowing in awe.
Critters super fan right here. But I'm sorry.
Well, my first short story that I ever wrote, and it had to be like in third grade, was just like a Critters ripoff. Because I think it was like called Alien Escape or something, where like a mothership comes down. This was me fusing Critters and ET, but like an alien ship comes down, lays their eggs in a chicken coop, and they blast off, and this little lonely alien hatches, and I think it looked like an alligator maybe, but it was a total critter, and it was just like trying to like find its family, and I think it like eats the chickens, and like it was just kind of riffing off of what I remember from the trailer that I saw, like the 30-second ad spots on TV that you would see in between cartoons, because Critters was like rated, I think it was like rated PG or at least PG-13 before. Yeah. So I just copped to stealing from Mick Garris and Critters.
I wish you still had this, because I would love to read your Critters homage.
I mean, I think it was like a part of like a writing assignment for school. Like I had to write it for class, and I think I turned it in, and I think my teacher was a little bit like, oh, this seems to be a little, I don't know how I feel about this, because it was like bloody chicken feathers, and like, it set me off on a path that I have never veered from since.
This is the point in movies where the teacher would meet with your parents and say, "We have something disturbing to show you."
He seemed like such a nice boy, but like the stories he's writing, now we're worried about his well-being. And it's funny, like total tangent, but like that, like every time I wrote a story for school, that would happen. Like I remember in 8th grade, I had to do I was like at a writing camp, and I wrote a story called The Snowman, and it was about a killer snowman that kills the kids that ends up who made the snowman. And again, like my teacher like wrote a note, because like they do like a weird kind of like at the end, like an overview of like, this is our assessment of your child, and they like wrote in the fucking thing like, we were concerned about the though we're not going to like assess the validity of the story itself, we are concerned about his like mental emotional well-being. And I'm just like, wow, score. Like that was a win.
Good for you. Yeah. I don't remember early short stories. I was always writing stories when I was little, but I think most of the time I was drawing them or doing them as comics. I remember in 10th grade, so all throughout high school, I had the worst teachers. And I'm not disparaging teachers, because I think teaching is a noble profession, and I think there are great teachers, and a great teacher can really change your world. But all throughout high school, I had the worst teachers, except for my teacher in 10th grade. Mrs. Fletcher was her name, and she was a gypsy, and she was into strange things, and she encouraged me to write short stories. And I remember writing short stories in my journal. We had to do a journal every day, and I remember writing stories, and she was very encouraging. And I've tried to look her up since then. I haven't been able to find her, but I really wish I could have found her again. I haven't been able to track her down. She was the only teacher. There were a couple of teachers who were worth something, but she was the only teacher who really encouraged me to be a writer. My other English teachers thought I was terrible. So
isn't that funny though? Like all it takes is just one,
Yeah.
like just to kind of like nudge you in the right direction.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it.
Do you remember? So I know your first book was like a collection of stories. Did you submit stories out to magazines and such? And
Oh yeah, yeah. Like starting in college, I was like, I'm gonna make a go at this. Like I'm gonna try, and I set aside like whatever money I was earning from whatever summer job I had. And this is like dating myself again. Like we had, what is it? Like it was like postage money because back then, like pre-internet, pre-email, it's like you have to mail out your submissions, and it's always like if you want your printout back, you have to like include a envelope, a self-addressed stamped envelope. So like for an entire school year, my junior year of college, all I did was like every quarter I would just submit stories, and like maybe I would send out 5-10 stories, and 9 of them would come back every quarter, and they'd just be like, nope, nope. And then just the kind of sheer kind of like just doing it like over and over again. Like as soon as one story was rejected at some place, I would just put it in the envelope and send it to the next place, until it would either I ran out of money or it landed somewhere. And I remember the first story I wrote that actually got, it's not even that it's the first story that I wrote that got published, but it was the first story that I wrote that got published, and then I got paid for it, which is like such a like, whoa, like, and like I think it was like $30 in like 1800s or whenever it was, but it was like, oh my god, like, and like doing the kind of like cost analysis of like how much money, like probably like hundreds of dollars in postage and stamps, and I got $30 for a story, and I was like, this is it. I'm in. Like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I'll make a career out of it somehow.
I I miss those days of the self-addressed stamped envelope. I mean, I was into it. I loved the process of it. And I got a lot of rejection. I mean, just like you, I'd get a rejection, immediately put it in another envelope, send it right back out. And I remember my favorite rejection. Um, there was an editor, Stephen Mark Rainey, who has written a lot of like Lovecraftian stuff over the years. He used to edit a magazine called Death Realm, and I really wanted to be in Death Realm. And I sent him a story, and he wrote me a really nice rejection back. And he said there are too many references to the Dark Shadows TV show in this story. It's too cutesy, all your references. And the thing was, I had never watched an episode of Dark Shadows. I had no idea what he was talking about. And then I had to like do research, and I realized, oh my gosh, somehow I have channeled all these Dark Shadows names and into this story, but that wasn't the case. I had not, it was not intentional. It was an accidental Dark Shadows reference.
Oh my God. Was there a character named like Barnabas Collins just
All right, it
by
wasn't quite.
mistake?
It wasn't quite that. that they were just names like Thatcher, I think, which was the name of one of the characters or one of the writers or something. But there was a lot of references to Dark Shadows that I did not intend to make.
Well, your pen name was Dan Curtis.
Yes, exactly. The first story I sold in quotation marks, um, was a story called Followers of the Serpent. And I had been trying to sell stories to this magazine Eldritch Tales forever, and I couldn't crack it. And I was working at Walden Books, and we did a signing with a horror writer named Ron D. And Ron was one of these journeyman writers. He told me he had to do a novel a month in order to make a living.
Good Lord.
And he had a lot of books with Zebra books. He was doing a lot of Zebra paperbacks, and he wrote under a pen name called David Dark. And he did a signing at Walden Books, and because I was the horror guy, I got to sit up with Ron while people were coming up and getting books signed, and we struck up a conversation. He was super sweetheart of a guy, and I told him I was trying to become a writer and trying to break in, and I told him I was trying to break in at Eldritch Tales, and he said, send him another story and tell him I told you to send it. And I certainly did. Of course I did, because I'm no fool. And he accepted the story immediately. And then the magazine folded. The magazine folded, but I was living high on the fact that I got a story accepted. And thank God, it was such a ripoff of Joe R. Lansdale's Dead in the West. I mean, it
Yeah.
might as well have been Dead in the West, the Cullen Bunn version, but
My God.
it was such a ripoff. But I'm glad it didn't happen. I've shared it with people, ironically at this point.
Yeah.
Ironically,
Yeah. You killed that magazine.
I did. Much like every comic I've ever read, much like every superhero comic I've ever written, killed it dead. What do you think makes short stories special, though? I mean, we both obviously love them. Why?
Yeah. I mean, I do think the brevity, you kind of like glimpse into the world. And the fact that like it doesn't ask for too much time. Like I do think that like you have 10 minutes to kill. You have, like you're waiting in the waiting room, or like you could flip through a People magazine, or you could just like bring that book. And I do think, I mean, I can remember reading stuff like A Good Man Is Hard to Find. Like I remember, like short stories, I think. And like for me, like growing up down south, like the oral tradition was always kind of a part of it. Like storytelling in of itself, like short stories are just, it is a window into a world that you glimpse in, and you might not like enter into the world, but you see it, and then you run away, you're out. Like, and I don't know, like the in and out of it all is amazing. And I mean, geez Louise, the market right now, like every independent publisher, every major publisher, like there are collections just coming out, anthologies coming out left and right. And it's a good time to be at least in the genre and like horror, like, a horror writer who has short stories, on the brain.
Yeah.
Um, because there's a hunger for it.
Yeah. I always feel like, for me, short stories, and you touch on it. I like that I don't have to get everything. I like that it leaves,
Yeah.
some of them leave questions. There's a bigger story maybe, or a bigger world that I don't get all the answers for. But short stories are kind of, to me, like a punch, and,
Yeah.
and they punch, and they stick with you. And I can't remember the details of every novel I've written, right, or read,
Yeah.
but I can remember a lot of short stories, and they really,
Yeah.
even short stories that weren't that great. Some of them I still, I'm like, oh, I remember that one, and I really, it means something to me. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like that punch of a short story, and it just hits you and sticks with you. I remember very clearly going to Walden Books before I worked there, and getting the Books of Blood by Clive Barker, and those stories are
Yes.
just, I mean, those books changed they shifted everything for me when I
Yeah.
read them. And then I read some of the novels, and I was like, I like these, but they didn't have that sting that the short
Yeah.
stories had. Yeah.
Yeah, I think short stories are punk rock. Like
Oh,
they're
yeah,
like
that's good.
songs. Like they're just total, like they're like 3-minute ditties. You're in, you're out. Like I just love the kind of like the enclosed quality to them. You're just three chords, boom, 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 done.
I like it. So, we always offer some recommendations, just things we want to
Mhm.
look at in terms of whatever our topic is for every episode. So, today we're talking short stories. I will fully admit, before we get into this, I am cheating my ass off in this episode. I have so many
Okay.
cheats, but that's okay. We can cheat if we want to. So,
I'm totally curious. How are you cheating?
well, you're
Like,
gonna have to wait and see.
all right, all right.
All right. Do you want to start us off though with some recommendations for some short stories that people should look at?
Okay. I'm gonna start kind of classic just because and go cosmic and a little weird. Um because it's personal to me, but Algernon Blackwood wrote a story called The Wendigo, which, you know, roots itself in kind of Native American folklore. Like it, the story itself is kind of an appropriation, and the two fur trappers are in the Canadian wilderness, and they um, end up encountering this malevolent spirit, and one of them gets whisked away. Um, and I remember reading this story. My grandmother read it to me when I was couldn't have been like older than 6 or 7, and it was in a collection of stories, illustrated stories called North America's Greatest Monsters, and I had no idea who the heck Algernon Blackwood was. Like, it didn't matter to me. But like that story with the illustrations, which is like pre Stephen Gamble, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Like it was like that stark pen and ink, just like bleeding across the page. It was just one of the most terrifying stories to have read as a kid at bedtime by your grandmother. And like I loved it.
I love that.
I wanted more of that.
I love it. Um, I I've read that story. I don't remember it as well, and I also didn't have someone reading it to me. But that's a great. I like that imagery of someone reading it to you, and how I do get how terrifying that would be, though. That's a great one. Um, I'm not going to start with my cheats, though. Sorry, I'm saving my cheats to later. Um,
All right.
my first recommendation is from 1951, and it is Notebook Found in a Deserted Farmhouse. Deserted House, Deserted Farmhouse. Deserted House, Deserted Farmhouse by Robert Bloch. so a lot of people think of, you know, H.P. Lovecraft and they think, oh, well, he created this massive mythos. And the truth of the matter is, most of the stuff people really think about when they think of Lovecraft, Cthulhu, whatever, was created by other people. And Robert Bloch's Notebook Found in a Deserted Farmhouse or House, I can't remember. I should have done more research. I should have refreshed my memory, I guess. This story is one of them because it created the idea of shoggoths, which have become sort of this big thing, especially if you're looking at people in the gaming, you know, the role-playing game community. Shoggoths are a big deal. But this story is terrifying. It's about a boy who goes to live with his aunt and uncle out in the woods somewhere, and they keep talking about them others or them ones who live out in the woods. And it's the story of druids and druids doing rituals out in the woods and these terrible creatures that are living out there. And it's all told in a notebook that the boy writes in what are essentially his final moments. And there's something about that, and it still has those sort of big revelations that, you know, Lovecraft stories would have, where they would build to these sudden moments of, you know, strange revelations, and it has that in there. And it is probably my favorite Lovecraftian story of all time. And if you haven't read it, I mean, Robert Bloch, obviously an amazing writer, but this story was a masterpiece in my opinion.
Done. I'm in.
All right, what's next? What else you got?
All right, I feel like I have to get it out of the way. I have to go to Stephen King, and I just have to like the inability to pick just one, and I'm gonna pick one.
See, this is why I have cheats later, because I can't pick one, but I want to hear your one.
I'm gonna pick my one, but I'm gonna say the others that I didn't pick
That's
that
fair.
were like, um, because I remember in the seventh grade, having, you know, like not paying attention in class with a copy of like Skeleton Crew underneath my desk, like reading King while not paying attention to what I was supposed to be paying attention to. And like that, I mean, you know, fundamentally, like I just wouldn't be here if it weren't for both, you know, Night Shift and Skeleton Crew. Like those were foundational texts for me. So yeah, it could have been Gray Matter, it could have been The Jaunt, it could have been The Raft, but I'm totally going for survivor type in Skeleton Crew.
It's so good.
So good. And like, I mean, we talk about like remembering moments, or remembering, like, even if you don't remember the story, like you remember these moments. I remember how I felt reading the last one or two lines of that book. And like, you know, I'm spoiling it because if you don't know it at this point, like it's your fault.
It's still
But
worth
like,
reading, even if you spoil it. So go for it.
oh my god, just the last line, like ladyfingers, oh my god, it tastes like ladyfingers. Like I remember reading that as a kid, as like a 12, 13-year-old kid, and just being like, oh my god, like like the chill that story produces, that just those lines produce. And you know, you talk about, you know, with Bloch, the story, it's like it's this kind of found footage, like you're reading the Notebook. Like I can't remember, I'm might be incorrect, but I feel like survivor type is also a found
It's got to
text.
be. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
like
yeah,
like it's his diary as he's like snorting copious amounts of cocaine and like eating himself.
yeah,
Like uh,
yeah. That story is so well constructed. It's pretty short, if I remember correctly. It's very,
mhm.
I mean, of the books of the stories in that collection, it's one of the shorter ones, but it's so well constructed and set up with the drugs and the doesn't he have like an anatomy book or something that he
Yeah,
looks at? I mean, it's it's uh it's so
it's
good.
perfect.
It's
I think it's a perfect story.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think there's anything I would agree with you. And I would have been happy if you'd have just said Night Shift and Skeleton Crew, because I couldn't. I mean, those books. I come back to them again and again and again and again. I love them so much. They're the stories are just so great. I mean, I might have gone with The Mist, but that goes into novella territory, I guess. So I could, Survivor Type's one of the more memorable ones. That like that's the one. As you were building up to it, I was like, he's gonna say Survivor Type. He's gonna say Survivor Type. He's gonna hit us with Survivor Type, and you did. You didn't let me down.
Oh my God. You have to. You have to. Like, and you want to talk about like community building? Like when you find other people who love Survivor Type, it's like friends for life.
Right.
Like you're just
Yeah.
like, this is like,
It's such a good story. It's awesome. And I really don't think knowing knowing about it or knowing spoiling anything ruins that story at all. It's a great
yeah.
story regardless. And I feel like it's been adapted into like a TV show episode or something, but
Yeah.
I don't remember what show it would be on.
It was Creep Show, the Shudder
The
series.
recent one? Okay, so
Yeah,
yeah.
they animated it. I think it was like
You're
Kiefer
right.
Sutherland did the
All right.
voiceover
You're
for
right.
it.
And I was disappointed that I mean, I don't know how I mean, it would take a lot of special effects to not animate it, I guess, but yeah, you're right. But yeah, great story. My next one is a story that I discovered by accident because I was a fan of this author's novels in the 80s. I love the Necroscope series by Brian Lumley. I thought those were great. They were big, thick, Tom Clancy meets vampire novels. And then I discovered a short story called Fruiting Bodies. Fruiting
Yes.
Bodies is one of the most haunting stories I have ever read. And I remember in the collection that I had, it even said, I think it had an introduction by Brian Lumley, and it said something like, don't expect any blood in this one because mushrooms don't bleed. And it's a story that there's no, I mean, a lot like Survivor Type, there's no monster. It's a story of a guy who goes back to this, like the town his family has grown up in. The town is slowly crumbling into the sea.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love this story.
and there is this dry rot fungus that is growing in houses. And like the guy meets someone in the town. He's like, let me show you what I mean by dry rot. And he's pulling up boards, and there's all this fungus is puffing up out from underneath the boards. And then they start talking about the graveyard. And he's like, I hate to think what would happen if I dug up one of these and saw what my dear old, whatever his wife's name was, this fungus was inside her. And as this town is crumbling around them, this fungus has grown and is puffing out, and it's moving through the town. It's not a monster chasing anyone, but there's something about that slow decay and that slow consumption in Fruiting Bodies. That story is, I mean, it really bothers me. And I mean, and then I became a homeowner, and I'm like, oh, well, mold is a thing, and you can't think about mold without thinking of Fruiting Bodies. So, if you have ever dealt with a serious mold problem, maybe skip it because it's going to be very triggering for you. But that story was, whew, that story really, really got me in a big way.
Yeah. It's so funny. I love that story, and I remember reading it, and I kind of went on a fungal binge, like just looking for spore. I was writing about it, and I wanted to just kind of absorb whatever there was out there for it. And there's my next selection is in fact a Fruiting Body-esque
all right.
story called High Fae by John Langan, who wrote The Fisherman, which is an amazing novel. But he and Silvia Moreno Garcia, who wrote Mexican Gothic, which is an amazing spore fungal book and really kind of kickstarted this whole new trend that we're in. she edited or co-edited a collection, an anthology of stories called just Fungi. And John Langan starts off the collection, the anthology, with this story called Hyphae. And it's all about a son, like an adult man who is trying to connect to his estranged father, but he's not picking up the phone. So he goes back to the house, you know, the house is just kind of in that dry rot kind of way. Like it feels a little fungal, a little moldy. And he kind of goes deeper into the house, into the basement, and finds a crawl space that shouldn't be there. And goes further and further in. And it's all of a sudden he comes to this thing that may or may not be his father, and I love that story so much, and to the degree that I've kind of copied it for a story that I wrote called Spew of the News, that follows a kind of similar pattern. But I just love the kind of you're on this journey, and it's what are we gonna find? And oh, it's a mushroom, Dad. Oh, I loved it.
That's the title of my next short story. Is Oh, It's a Mushroom, Dad. I think that's a great
Mushroom
story title.
by Cullen Bunn.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna check that story out because I'm not familiar with it, but I don't know what it is about. I don't love. I'm really creeped out by fungus, and
Yeah.
it's
Well, check out the whole collection.
yeah.
The anthology is
Yeah,
great because
I got to. I have to now.
yeah.
So my next one, and as I was thinking about this episode and I was thinking about stories, I haven't revisited this story in quite a while, and I kind of want to read it again. But the name of the story the title is Job 37 by Gemma Files. And years ago, when I was an aspiring writer, I'd written a few short stories, but not a lot. I went to one of the horror writer conventions, and Gemma Files hosted a story reading where I think she had Oreo cookies and Kool-Aid, and she read 2 or 3 of her stories. And one of the stories she read was Job 37, and it was amazing. Job 37 is about the setup's awesome because it's about a crime scene cleanup crew, and the story's told as an interview between a psychic research institute or something, and this guy who ran a crime scene cleanup, and this one job they had that had psychic fragments that were expanding the world around him and expanding his perceptions of the world. They had a machine, if I remember, called the the brain machine or something like that, that they used to clean brains up out of the carpet. But it expands into this really surreal psychic world, and this interview between these two people. And I love that story so much, and I've read it a couple of times since. It never I do think that there's magic in having an author read their own story, and Gemma reading that story at that little party with, I think, 3 or 4 people were at the party, but reading that story, I loved it so much. Job 37, if you can find it, I'm certain. I mean, it's been collected, in her books. I'm sure it's been published elsewhere. It's a great story if you haven't read it.
God, she's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of her work, and I've only met her virtually, but I can't imagine being one of a small handful of people hearing her read a story out loud.
And
that would be so cool.
This was early on, early in her career as a writer, really, and it was just a small group. But that story, I remember looking at my friend who was there with me, and I looked over and I was like, "Wow!" Because I was I don't know that I'll ever write anything that great. It's one of those kind of stories that kind of just baffled me into how awesome it was.
That's history. You were taking part in history. You were one of the chosen few, the select few.
I was. All right, my next couple are cheats, so you better go for it.
Okay, I'm gonna do newer like new authors, because it sucks, because like when you said 5, I was just like, oh man, like where's Laird Barron, where's Brian
Sure.
Evanson, where's AC Wise, and like there's just like it's impossible to narrow it down. And it can't be like a top 5, but I feel like I'm gonna I'm gonna it's not a cheat as much as just like I just want to like pay lip service to these authors. Um, but there's a newish author by the name of Sam Rebeline, uh, and he's amazing because he's written 3 books now. His first one was called Edenville. His next one that's coming out in the fall is called Galway's Gospel. But earlier this year, he came out with a short story collection called The Poorly Made and Other Things. And there's this one short story in there called My Name is Ellie. And it is, his stuff is just like kind of gonzo, like it's cosmic without being like like it bristles into the cosmic. It's gonzo cosmic. Like it's like if Hunter S. Thompson, or like it feels like it's having fun with its cosmic horror, in a way that makes it a little bit more nimble. And My Name is Ellie is this amazing story that all takes place, like it's from the perspective of a little girl, and she's kind of telling the story about like living in this house with her parents, and like there may or may not be these little people living in the wall, like 6-inch people living in the walls of their house, and the rituals, and the kind of the things that they do, the kind of customs that they have, and the life that they have, in the walls of their house. And it's such a beautiful story. And like you, like I was at StokerCon a year or two ago now, and he read it out loud, and it was a beautiful thing. It was just a beautiful moment to like be like, oh wow, like we're around the campfire in its own way, and like we're just kind of spinning yarns. But
That's
yeah, that was
awesome.
an amazing one.
So my next one is a cheat. The first of my 2 cheats, and it's because just what you said earlier about Stephen King stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't narrow it down. I simply couldn't. So I am going to recommend Blue World by Robert McCammon. It's a
Wow.
collection of short stories. It has so many great stories. Yellow Jacket Summer, which I think is just an amazing story. Night Crawlers, He'll Come Knocking at Your Door, Night Calls the Green Falcon. Those stories are, if you haven't read them, they're amazing. And I mean, like I remember driving. I used to drive back and forth from Missouri to North Carolina and back, and I had a cassette tape audiobook of Blue World, and it had Yellow Jacket Summer, and it had Night Calls the Green Falcon, and it had Night Crawlers on it. And I used to listen to them over and over and over again. Uh, and then I've read the stories dozens of times. Those Strangely, I can't remember Blue World, which was a novella that was at the end of the collection. I don't remember a thing about it, but I remember those short stories leading up to Blue World so vividly. Uh, and there's another one called Something Passed By, which is like this real surreal, bizarre story. I just love those stories so much. It was impossible for me to pick one. I couldn't. I
Yeah.
just couldn't. Uh,
You're a
I
cheater.
am a
You
cheater. I'm
cheated.
a dirty cheater. If I had to pick one, I would probably say Night Crawlers, but I feel like that's unfair to Yellow Jacket Summer, and it's unfair to Night Calls the Green Falcon. But I could maybe say Night Calls the Green Falcon is a little more of a novella, so maybe I'll bump that one off. But it's still unfair to Yellow Jacket Summer, which is about a boy who can summon yellow jackets and control them. And I think yellow jackets are the worst. And then Night Crawlers is about a vet who, uh, whenever he dreams, the soldiers that he left behind kind of manifest and come at him, and they can manifest in a very physical way.
Amazing.
And
Do you remember who was the narrator, the audiobook narrator? Was it like a movie star?
it
Like,
was
was
a
it
movie star.
Alec Baldwin?
So I should have looked it up. So I can pinpoint, I can picture him. I don't know his name. So some viewer is going to know right away. So in the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, there at the very beginning of the movie, Steve Martin is pitching to this businessman, and the businessman, I think all he does is go, and he sighs and he looks down, but it's that guy. That guy is the narrator of the book, and he's magnificent. And I feel bad that I can't remember his name right now. So it's the guy from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles at the beginning. That guy.
That's amazing. That guy.
He
That
was
guy.
great. He was great.
Wow.
All right.
All right, I got one more, and it's a collection that's coming out later this year. And I got an early read because I was able to blurb it. And the collection itself is called "You Have to Let Them Bleed." You have to let them bleed. This is going to be really heartbreaking, and I'm going to lose all my street cred because I'm going to mispronounce her name, and it's going to be really awful. But Annie Neugebauer, Neugebauer.
You got it.
Neugebauer.
That's good.
Neugebauer. Neugebauer.
Yeah.
Neugebauer. Like she's never going to talk to me again.
I like that this is your own personal horror short story, is not being able to, not sure that you can pronounce it correctly.
Aren't we all the heroes of our own personal horror short stories? Just trying to get out. But it's an amazing collection, and like there's stories about like, oh, like, you know, you're in a water like a water aerobics class, and like they're witches, and like it's amazing. Like, but like the story collection starts off with this one piece called Hide, and the less I tell you about it, the better it is. And again, it's short and sweet. Like she's in, she's out, and I think that those are the best short stories, where it's like they just don't overstay their welcome. So Hide by Annie Neugebauer.
Perfect. I love it.
From Bad Hand Books, and it comes out in the fall, like September, I think.
I will go. Is it available for pre-order, do you think?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll go make sure I can pre-order. And all these books will be in the comments, by the way, everything here. So we'll make sure people can link to where they can find it again. My last one is another cheat, but I don't care. I could cheat all day long with short story collections. My next one is The Dark Descent, edited by David G. Hartwell. And when I read them originally, it was 3 books. One was called The Medusa in the Shield, and one was titled A Fabulous Formless Darkness, and then there was another one. But they've since collected it into one gigantic book that's like 50 short stories, and it collects sort of a history of horror short stories. I mean, it's got, Nathaniel Hawthorne in it, to Stephen King and Clive Barker. And every short story in that collection comes with a little intro by David G. Hartwell, where he talks about the evolution of it, or the evolution of the genre, where the story fits, how it influenced other stories and other writers to come. And it is, I'm assuming it's still in print somewhere. If I were teaching a class on the genre, this is the book this is like the textbook. I remember, when I was in college, you'd get those big, thick textbooks of short stories, and you're like, oh, I don't like about 80% of these are terrible for me. But this book would be like if that textbook were all stories I really loved, and it's awesome.
It's foundational text.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so what are you working on, though? What are you working on? What do you have coming out right now?
All this talk about short stories is kind of the prelude to me pitching my own collection that comes out in September. I have a book called Acquired Taste, and it hits shelves on September 9th from Titan Books. And it's 25 oogly boogly spooky short stories. They're weird ones. I'm dipping my toe in the water.
Nice. I love it. And where can people find out more about you and your work?
I'm on those internets, those social media sites, doing them all pretty poorly. Instagrams, Twitters, Facebooks.
When you start adding the plural to them, you're getting older by the second. Just so you know.
Oh my God, it's happening. Blue Skies, Threads. Threads is already plural,
Oh,
so
that's
that
true.
one does.
That's true.
That's a cheat.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, thank you for this. Was awesome because you gave me some stories I'm not familiar with. You gave me some things to look forward to, including Acquired Tastes. I mean, so there's some awesome material there. I could talk about. I mean, we could probably talk about another. We could probably do this 2 or 3 more times and talk about more short stories because there's so many out there that are awesome.
More cheats.
Yes, I could cheat again and again, but thank you for joining me for this. I think people are really going to like it, and it means a lot that you came on the Cullenoscopy, even though it has such a terrible title.
I mean, I'm of an age where I need to get checked every so often. So I'll come back when the doctor says it's time.
Hey, thank you again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you again, Cullen. Bye.
You too.
So I do have a few favorite short horror films. One that immediately jumps to my mind is this short called Bedfellows, which I can't remember who directed it or who wrote it, but it's just about a woman waking up in bed and her husband's not there. And the thing that I liked about it is there's just this building sense of dread. You know, as you get into it, something awful's about to happen, because this is a horror movie that's 1.5 minutes long. It's going to get to it fast, and it delivers in spades. There are plenty of others. I saw an advanced edit of the short film Hunt by Yellow Bite Films. And it's great. I think it comes out early 2026. You'll see the full thing will be available for everyone to see. And speaking of Yellow Bike, they helped me film a couple of short films that I wrote. We did The Bleed and Watching. Were both short films that I wrote. You can see them on this YouTube channel. You can see them on Yellow Bike Films channel. So check those out as well. If you're looking for some of my short stories, in the next year, Outland Entertainment is going to be releasing the complete Cullen Bunn. And this thing covers every short story I've ever written, published and unpublished. And it goes in chronological order. So the first story you read is one of the first stories I wrote, and it shows, but it does show sort of an interesting progression. And that's coming out from Outland Entertainment. If you want to keep up with me and my work, I do a weekly newsletter called Nightmare Fuel. You can subscribe to it easily by going to my website, cullenbunn.com. I'm on all the social medias at Cullen Bunn. If you enjoyed this episode, you can please like it, subscribe, share it with your friends. That's it for today, though, so I will see you next time.